Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Mark Ash, I'm the Managing Director here at Awesome. This is Tabby, and Tabby's going to be talking to you a little bit today what he's doing on this TTRS. Now it looks like we've got an hour blue day, so 2 RS3s and a TTRS. And before we start, just if you can make sure when you subscribe, just click the notifications, and then any new videos that we've got coming on, you'll be notified and you'll be able to watch them. Right, so I'll hand over to Tabby. He's going to talk a little bit about stage one and servicing and why. What's the best bang for the buck?
Dankeschön. We're just rolling. Okay, so we've got obviously ATS TTRS in 400 horsepower stock. What we're going to do to this vehicle today, it's having basic stage one, so we're going to lift the power output of the car with a simple ECU flash, and also just before we do that we're going to carry out an interim service, a Haldex service and a DSG service on this vehicle. So we'll run through that, we'll talk through that, everything we do step by step we'll just talk through as we go, and basically go from there. Right, so basically we're just going to carry out the oil and filter, the oil and filter section of obviously the interim service. The car will be sort of fully inspected, and we're also going to change the DSG oil filter, and we're going to do the same with the Haldex on the rear. So we'll just get some shots of that as as and when it's going on. So we're going to just replug the sump replacement crush washer, just to obviously make sure that the sump plug seals. You don't want to reuse the same one. What we'll do is we'll fit that and then we'll just torque it to spec. Remove the screw at the end of the oil filter housing, and you've basically got like a spring-loaded kind of bleed nipple. You just want to push up and move to the side, and that'll just allow the filter housing to drain, so that when you unscrew it you don't get any sort of nasty surprises. Basically we'll just remove the filter housing, slide it down, just drain whatever's left in there, slide the oil filter off, and then there's filter, it's just a seal here as well which we're going to replace, and we'll put the new filter in, put it back on, torque that to spec as well. Filter in, slide that back on, and then we're just going to torque that up to spec. So maybe not obviously the glamorous side of what we do here, but this it's the essential side of maintaining a vehicle. Keeping your oil changes regular. Basically considered obviously your oil's probably a lot considered the blood of the motor. In my personal opinion, I think any sort of tuned vehicle, you should be, putting your oil changes, less, maybe even half what the manufacturer suggests. And then as you go up in increments, of your stages of tuning, you should lower the, distance between sort of your maintenance, just to obviously just keep it, running for as long as possible without any sort of failure. Yeah, so just winding out the drain on the Haldex oil. You can see it's quite black. So initially it came out quite black. It started to clear up a little bit there. Tends to be signs of what we find is maybe the clutch materials, the metal sort of building up inside the oil. It sort of like all clumps together and goes gooey, and can become an obstruction for the strainer in the pump, which is probably one of the most common issues or causes for failure we see at the moment is the pumps failing, generally because they've just been overworking to try and pump the volume through them. What we'll do is we'll pop this pump out and you'll get an idea of what kind of build-up's on this one. This car's done 20,000 miles. Customers, no idea on the actual last time it was actually done, if it's been done at all. 20,000 miles is the factory sort of time to get it done, but we find with these they're pretty bad for the build-up. So Habib behind the camera just asked me a pretty good question. Well, yeah, surprisingly. Basically asked me why the Haldex system has an oil pump. Obviously the reason behind that and the importance for needing it is just basically supplies the oil pressure that's required to keep the clutches clamped. So with restrictions in that, or the pump not working at all, you're just going to have the clutches disengaged, which will sort of give you rear wheel drive issues. So you just won't be inputting the power through to the drive shaft at the back.
So what's the most common problem that these suffer?
Just spoke about just before
you haven't got four-wheel drive.
Yeah,
what causes that?
We literally just spoke about that. I mean, the biggest issue we see currently is failures on the actual pump itself. And we talked about just how the build-up can sort of be an added factor to that, the build-up of goo. Inside there, which is obviously the material, because there's actually no some of the earlier Haldex systems had filters. There's no filter in this system, just the strainer that is in the end of the oil pump. Now, because of the lack of the filter means that this sort of friction material from the clutches and bits of metal can all sort of congeal and work their way around the system, and then what we find is they become a restriction for the strainer, which becomes a restriction for the oil pump.
So what's the education to the customer then? I mean, obviously the service.
I mean, it's keeping it well maintained. I mean, the factory is 20,000 miles. So, we're seeing these. I mean, this vehicle currently has covered 20,000 miles. I don't know we don't know any other history of it. So maybe it's been done before, but we'll have a good idea as soon as we take it out. But you tend to find that. We've seen them with like 10,000 miles on the sort of gunked up or failed. So,
cool.
Yeah. So basically, pumps out. I've removed the strainer. This one in particular actually isn't that bad to look at visually. There's a little bit of gunk in there. You can see some of the gunk that we've sort of brushed off it here. Generally, if you come up here, we sort of scoop on the inside, you see the build up there now. See it drop, getting ready to drop. Let's just drop into the drainer, but you're still getting the build up inside there. So it's still sort of all congealing together. All the sort of, you see like bits of metal and friction material on there. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead, get this cleaned up. We'll put new seals on the pump, use new bolts, and we'll fill it with oil. So basically this is the official VAS tool for gravity bleeding the Haldex systems. So basically we're just going to fill the Haldex, plug it up, we're going to jump in the car, prime the pump up, and then we'll just recheck the level. So yeah, we're just going to run the Haldex pump and engage the clutch. So that way obviously the oil can be bled through the system, and then we'll just recheck the level, make sure it's exactly where it needs to be. So basically we're going to drain the DSG oil. There's two plugs on this whip the main plug out, and then what we'll do is there's basically a fill funnel inside, so we'll take that out as well, let the oil drain out, and then there's a front section on the mech that needs draining as well. I'll show you that in a sec. Basically, we're going to take out the level funnel that basically screws inside where the drain is. This will obviously allow the rest of the oil out. Second drain plug on the DQ500 at the front. What we normally do is just fold that up in there. As the oil comes out, it's going to want to go into the sort of arch trim here, so it just saves a bit of the mess. Again, replace any of the sort of alley crush washers. We'll bung the front plug up, we'll torque that to spec. We'll throw the level plug back in, and then we'll fill it. And then before we run it up, we'll swap the filter out. The filter is actually undone, draining off at the top already, so that should have drained the filter housing, so it'd just be a case of swapping the filter, running it through the gears, making sure it's at the right temperature, and then just dropping it out. Okay, so basically we fill the Old Faithful up. It doesn't look like the most conventional tool, but it is actually really good for sort of filling it up. These naturally would work in a similar sort of gravity feed way as the Haldex one does, but very long-winded sort of filling it. So we use this pump to sort of, you know, fill it from underneath, which is obviously the way to do it. Fill it from underneath, we'll put the plug in, like I say, we'll swap the filter out, we'll run it up, get it to temperature, run it through the gears, and then we'll just drain off the excess. Right, so what we're going to do is check the transmission fluid temperature. We're going to also run it through every gear for a couple of seconds, just on the ramp with sort of all four wheels spinning. So we're going to take it up through each gear. We'll also put it through reverse. Then we're going to set it into park. Don't film me struggling. So we're just running through the basic settings on the transmission after the DSG service. Then going to go ahead, do the service light, clear and log any fault codes if there is any, report those back to the customer, and then we will move on to the dyno. So, cars on the dyno, we've just literally done the stock runs, we've gathered the data, we've made sure we're happy with the vehicle. We're going to go ahead, we're going to flash the tuning on for you. We've already bored you with, or maybe not bored you, some may have found it interesting with some of the service bits. We've compressed that down, you know, normally probably about an hour and a half into to do an interim service, so you know, some of the bits we haven't bored you with, but some of the main bits we've sort of touched on what we're doing. So yeah, we're going to go ahead. This is having APR Stage 1 today, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to flash that, and we're going to basically run the car afterwards, gather the data again, and see, you know, what's going on, you know, make sure we're happy with everything. One of the big things is just, you know, for us, probably the best mod you can do on most cars, most turbocharged cars, is just a simple remap. You know, your power to your pound, your bang for buck, is, you know, tends to be second to none with most turbo cars. Simple stage 1 tune, no other modifications, tends to, you know, really improve most cars. Okay guys, so we finished up on the dyno. We're really happy with what the car's doing. We've gone through the data. You know, we're really happy with what the car's doing. We're happy with the power it's making, especially on 99 octane fuel. As you can see, the vehicle ran 418 stock. Audi advertised 400 on this particular vehicle, but we tend to see, you know, anywhere up to about 420 on these stock. So we've gone from 418 VHP to 483, so that's 65 horsepower increase, and we've gone from 401 foot-pounds to 497 foot-pounds, so that's a 96 foot-pound of torque increase on that. So the car, you know, is going to feel like night and day. It's going to feel phenomenal on the road. You know, the amount of you know, R&D that goes into these tunes from APR, you know, it's second to none. So you can, you know, safely tune the vehicle, and as we mentioned before, you know, bang for buck, you know, it's right up there with the best of the modifications. You know, you literally don't need to fit anything else onto the vehicle, just, you know, completely bone stock car, stage 1 flash, and you know, this is the increases you're seeing, so you know, why wouldn't you? So guys, yeah, we bored you with a bit of servicing, so we'd like to maybe, you know, see a little bit more of that, a little bit more fitment videos, and you know, just throw a little bit of that about. But again, just trying to bring you content. You know, subscribe, you know, comment, you know, hit us up, like button, whatever. It's down here somewhere. But yeah, you know, follow us. We'll keep trying to bring you, you know, content that you like.